Hi. Oh, something going on tonight. I'm not sure what the problem is. Oh, my duplicated. Right, let me take that one down. Right. Now, there you go. Yeah, I was double, then I was on two. I had two live streams going on at the same time. I think it's all okay now. You can see me okay, I can see you. Okay, let's say hello to everybody. Oh, so I wanted to say, first of all, thank you to Judy who bought me a coffee in between live streams. I'm trying to work out how I can get that, actually where it comes up, and tells me when somebody buys me a coffee, but I haven't worked that out yet. Hi, Chumba. Hi, Desi. Oh, what was that? Oh, I was on the chat anyway. Never mind. To StreamYard, and they've just sent me a message, but I thought I'd close that. Oh, the one. I just go away. Okay, sorry. So hi, Desi. Hi, David. Hi, Princess. Oh, you're all chatting as usual. Good. Okay, so while you're all having a little chat, now this person that I'm going to talk about tonight, this Pedro Rodrigues Filho, I wanted to do, I just thought I'll do somebody different, somebody that you've probably not heard of. And because he's Argentinian, you probably haven't heard of him. But I thought it'd be interesting because as I was reading about him, and I saw that he is actually the inspiration for Dexter. Now, I'm sure a lot of you out there have watched like Dexter because, if you're interested in true crime, etc. So I'm just closing off some windows. If you like true crime, I'm sure you've watched Dexter. It's an American series about a serial killer who only kills bad people, who only kills killers, really. I don't think you'll have heard of this actual serial killer because he's Argentinian. So there's some of the videos you won't be able to understand what they're saying unless you speak Spanish. And even I was struggling a little bit because Argentinian Spanish, although it is the same as Spanish, but the accent, etc. But he is the killer who killed killers. It's a very interesting story. And actually, when you look around some serial killers from other countries, obviously we always know about the Australian serial killers, the American serial killers, the British serial killers, Canadian, because they all speak our language. So, we see those news items, but we don't necessarily get to hear about serial killers from other countries. And it's really interesting. There was killers from India, Russia, China. It's unfortunately it is a universal phenomenon. It seems to be part of human nature that there'll always be some kind of people like this in the world, in any country. So, yeah, when I read about him, and then when I saw that he was the inspiration for Dexter, I thought, this would be an interesting case to cover for something different. So someone that you've not heard of, somebody different, someone from a different country with a different, life, if you like, a life that we probably we can't relate to in one way, but there is a lot that you can relate to. So before I start telling you about him, just do a little bit of housekeeping. So just about the buy me a coffee, thank you to Judy for buying me a coffee. Thank you to everyone who's joined as a member. Thank you to everyone who's liked my videos, subscribed to my channel, viewed. I've done quite. It's been good to sort of get back to normal. I've been trying to do as many catch up on as many videos as possible that I wanted. There's been lots of things come up, and I think, I'd like to do a video on that. And it took so long when I was in the UK on the other computer, whereas on this computer, hi Ruth, on this computer, I can just jump on and do a video much more quickly. So thank you for watching the videos. Now, what was the other thing I wanted to say? Oh, yeah, and for buying my book. I'm not going to go into the books really today, but thank you to all of you who have bought The Confessions of a Spanish Teacher or any of my books on Amazon. And yes, people that have sent me super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal'd me, you know, any support that you've given me, I much appreciate, whether it be financial or just moral support, like with actually watching the videos, engaging in the chat, etc. So don't forget to like the video. So that's it really as far as the housekeeping concerned. Now there's a couple of there's some very exciting news. I know some of you are from Scotland and it won't interest you at all, and people from other countries, but today in the ladies football, the World Cup, the Women's World Cup, America, who were the favourites, sorry Barb or any other American viewers I have, were knocked out of the World Cup, and they're the hosts, so they were the favourites and they've gone. So our England, the Lionesses, we're still in the World Cup, and our next match is on Monday morning against Nigeria. And we should beat Nigeria. No offence to Nigeria, but we are a better team than them. But there are still other good teams left in. One of which, funnily enough, is Spain. Spain are doing very well. So yeah, that was some good news in the football today. The other good news in the football today, for me anyway, was, well, I say Manchester City have beaten Arsenal in the Charity Shield, but I had to just turn it off because it was running into extra time. But we were winning 1-0. Arsenal have probably come back now and won 3-0 or 3-1 or something. But I think we've probably won it. There was another couple of things that I wanted to talk about, bits and pieces that had come up today. Anyway, it's gone. So let's get to, so I want to tell you about Pedro. So this is Pedro. I'm going to show you some photos of him. Let's see. Just want the, first of all, I just want the pictures of him, which I probably lost because I was doing other things. Get rid of that. Right, let's go on here. Now, I mean, he is a serial killer. He's killed a lot of people. Let me go back now and show. So first of all, I'm going to just show you some photos of it. No, that's not the one I want to share yet. This one. Images. Here he is. Here he is. This is your guy. I'll just check that you can see it. I think you can. Yeah. This is your guy. So his name is Pedro Rodrigues Filho. Now, just to let you know, Pedro in Spanish means Peter. It's the Spanish equivalent for the name Peter, one of the saints. Very common name in Spain. Most people in Spanish-speaking so Pedro is a very common name, and that is what Pedro means, Peter. Rodrigues, of course, is like Roger. And Filio, that means like son or son of. So basically, it's like what we might say, we don't really do that much in England or in the UK, but in America, they quite often use junior, don't they? Or and that's basically what that means. So it's Pedro Rodrigues Jr., I would translate that as. And his father was probably called Pedro Rodrigues as well. The Spanish, in Spain especially, people tend to give the same name to their firstborn child. as the father or mother. So their first male child will be named after the father, and the first female child will be named after the mother. Okay, so this is him. So this is where this first picture here, you can see he was very young, and that's probably when he first went to prison. He was in prison for a long, long time. And the other thing that I found interesting about this guy is he really did reinvent himself, because although he was a serial killer, he was involved, but you know, what you would call a good serial killer in that technically he killed killers, but you know, we don't condemn that, we don't condone that, obviously. But he killed a lot of people, mainly drug barons. He had a hatred for people who dealt drugs, etc., even though he did it when he was very young. And it all stemmed from an experience that he had when he was very young, when his girlfriend at the time and their child, she was pregnant at the time, was murdered by a drug gang. He had been in trouble before that, but that really seemed to set him off. So we can see here photos of when he was young. This is a more recent photo, but he was 68 when he died, and he only just died actually this year. He was actually murdered himself in a drive-by shooting type thing. And you know, let me just go back to talking to you without the thing on. So yeah, he was murdered just this year, in March this year, in a sort of drive-by shooting, by two men murdered him, and as yet nobody's been caught. Nobody's been caught for his murder. So I'm gonna go back onto the photos. Oh, is that oh. Anyway, sorry, I'm not getting distracted with the chat. I'm determined. Sorry, I know you're chatting between yourself, and that's good, but I'm not getting distracted for a change with the chat. So have a look at his pictures while I just tell you a little bit about him. So he was born on the 29th of October in 1954. Now I'm trying to work out if that makes him a Scorpio. It's a Scorpio, I think. Or is it a Libra? Anyway, I don't know. Doesn't matter. And he's known, he's got a couple of nicknames. He's known as Pedrinho Matador, which basically means Little Peter the Murderer. Matador is a killer. You know, when you say a matador in a bull ring, that literally means killer. And because Pedro is the name for Peter, so when they say Pedrinho, then that means Little Pete or Petey, or it's like a diminutive of Peter. And he was Brazilian. Oh, I thought he was Argentinian. I must have been looking at another one that was Argentinian. So he's Brazilian. Ah, that's right. So it's not. He's not Spanish. He's sorry. He won't be speaking Spanish. He'll be speaking Portuguese. But it's very similar. There's a lot of. I can see a lot of similarities between them. Anyway, he was a serial killer, spree killer, and a vigilante. So that's where he got this reputation from, about being a killer who killed killers, because he was a vigilante, and he pursued and killed exclusively suspected criminals when he was a teenager, when he was only between the age of 14 and 19. So, you know, he was very, very young, and he actually wiped out an entire gang in response to the murder of his pregnant girlfriend. So that gang that killed his girlfriend when she was pregnant, he wasn't even 19 when that happened. He wiped out that whole. Officially sentenced for 71 murders, but he claims to have killed over 100 drug dealers. rapists and murderers. He served 34 years in prison, and he was released in 2007. However, he was then re-imprisoned in 2011 on charges of inciting riot and deprivation of liberty, and sentenced to another 8 years in prison. But then he was released again in 2018 after 7 years on good behaviour. I mean, it's quite strange, isn't it, to think that he was sentenced for 71 murders, even if they were absolute horrible people, and then only serving 34 years in prison. Anyway, after he came out the second time in 2018, he announced that he had believe in being a vigilante anymore, and he started up a YouTube channel, obviously in Brazil, and he became a sensation, an internet sensation, and he was considered a celebrity and a YouTuber, and his YouTube channel was called Pedrinho X Matador. In other words, Little Peter or Little Pedro, the ex-killer. And he commented on modern crimes while at the same time educating the public that criminal acts are not something to be proud of. So it's funny, really, isn't it? He sort of started off, you know, as a kid. Well, you're always a killer. Once you're a killer, but killed a lot of people. I mean, 71 people. And he spent 30 years in prison. And the only girlfriend, as far as we know, or as far as recorded, that he ever had was his girlfriend, Maria Aparecida Botinha Olympia, who was murdered while pregnant by a street gang in 1971. And in 1971, so he would have been, gosh, so he was born in 1954. Now, you know, I'm not very good at maths, so somebody work this out for me. Oh my God, so he was 17. 1954 when he was born. She was murdered in 1971. So yeah, that's 6 to 6. I really am this bad at maths. Yeah, so he was 17 years old when his pregnant girlfriend was murdered by a gang. And that's what set him off, really. And he wiped out that whole gang. You know, you sort of, it's not right, is it, to do that? When you imagine now that was for a 17-year-old. And the thing is as well, this guy, he hadn't had the best upbringing. So he was born in a farm south of Minas Gerais, wherever that is, in Brazil. And his father was abusive towards his mother. And in fact, his skull, when he was born, Pedro's skull had been bruised because his father had kicked his pregnant mother in the stomach during a fight. And he says, Pedro says, he felt the first urge to kill when he was 13. He had a fight with his older cousin, and he pushed him into a sugarcane press, and he actually considered leaving him there to die, but he did rescue him. But that was the first murderous thought he had. So even before his girlfriend was murdered, he had, you know, these murderous thoughts. Then when he was 14, gosh, it just seems so young, doesn't it? At 14, he shot the deputy mayor in front of the city hall for having sacked his father. I mean, his father was a horrible person, but he obviously went over there and was angry that his father had been fired, probably because that meant his father took it out on the family, who was and he'd been sacked or fired over accusations of stealing food from the school kitchen, and this prevented him from getting new employment. And then, so he shot the mayor, then he shot the security guard, who he thought was the real person that had stole the food, and then blamed it on his father. So he went on the run. He took refuge in Greater San Paulo, where, well, Sao, they call it. I'm not very good at pronouncing Portuguese, but I know that will be Saint Paul, Sao Paulo. And as he was on the run, that's where he began robbing drug dens and killing drug traffickers. So he had already, before his girlfriend died, he had already started on this sort of life of crime, if you like, and murder. He'd already murdered drug barons. So he became a celebrity in the news media. Of course, in South America, you know, you've only got to look at Pablo Escobar and people like that. So these people, they do get some sort of celebrity status, don't they? It's I mean, I don't think that really happens in the UK or in America or other countries, but I've noticed in South America quite often, probably, you know, I don't know if you've watched if you watch Pablo Escobar, he was like a hero in a lot of, you know, a lot of people looked on him as a hero, but actually wasn't a nice person, you know, but I suppose people looked on him as some sort of working class hero. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think it's, have we got any equivalent? I suppose we had like Ronnie Biggs, didn't we, with the train robbery? People sort of thought of him as a bit of a sort of, even though he'd, you know, that poor train guard had died. I think people had like a bit of a soft spot. You know, the film was made with Phil Collins, etc. So yeah, maybe that's maybe we do like to look on these sort of working class heroes. I don't know. But I think if you murder 71 people, even if they were drug lords, it's really not a good thing, is it? Anyway, so he began robbing drug dens and killing drug traffickers, and this made him a celebrity in the news media as this vigilante little Petey. Little Petey, see, they're translating it as Pedrinho Matador, as little Petey killer. I don't think you would. I wouldn't translate it that. I'd call it Little Pete the killer or the murderer rather than a killer. But I don't know, maybe it doesn't translate. Sometimes there is no translation. Something that sounds appropriate in one language, you just can't translate it into another language. Anyway, that's when he met his girlfriend, Maria Aparecida Limpia, nicknamed Botinha, and they started living together. So he was still quite young, you know, started on his crime spree, if you like, when he was 14, and so by now he's only 17. So he was part of a gang, and he had to eliminate some rivals. He killed 3 ex-cronies, and then Botina became pregnant with his child, but she was murdered by a rival gang leader. So there's a problem when you mix in those sort of circles. There's so much revenge, isn't there? You know, and it sounds like revenge on him was taken out on his girlfriend, unfortunately. But he was still underage. He escaped and he went on a revenge killing spree. And he tracked down and killed every single member of that gang. Gosh. So he was only 19 years old when he was arrested for the first time on the 24th of May 1973, and he lived in prison for most of his adult years. Gosh, I mean, he never really, you know, the only life he had really was all about murder by the sound of it and tragedy. And then he went into prison, and while he was even in prison, he still managed to murder people. How did he ever get out of prison? I mean, I think in the UK you would just never come out of prison, would you? Because police records show that he was once transported in a vehicle with another prisoner. They were both handcuffed. And during the transport to wherever they were going, he killed the other prisoner. When they opened the van at the other end of the journey, the prisoner was dead. And Rodrigues said he did it because the man was a rapist. So he was set right. Now listen to this. This is the most. You think our country's bad. You think Britain's bad for being illogical about sentences, etc. So for his crimes, he was sentenced to 126 years in prison. Okay? So you think, oh, that's it, isn't it? That's it for the rest of his life. But no, because in Brazilian law, you can only serve at that time it may have changed now. Brazilian law at that time, the maximum you could serve in prison was 30 years. So what's the point in even giving him a sentence of 126 years? So he's killed at least 71 people. He's given a sentence for 126 years, but he was due to be released in 2003 because Brazilian law at the time only permitted people to serve 30 years maximum. This apparently went up to 40 years in 2019. Now that's not that long ago, so I would imagine it's still. So you want to be a serial killer, obviously the place to go is Brazil because the maximum you're going to get is 40 years. Anyway, he ended up serving 34 years and he was released on the 24th of April 2007. However, then on the 15th of September 2011, so that's 4 years later, he was arrested at his home where he worked as a caretaker, and he was sentenced. Now, I have no details about this, but he was sentenced to 8 years on charges such as riot and deprivation of liberty. So deprivation of liberty, that's like taking a hostage, isn't it? Or abducting someone. Anyway, he was then released for good behaviour 7 years later on the 10th of December 2018. And that's when little Peter, what do we say? See, we do have an expression in Spanish. Little Peter is Pedrito or little Pedro. I don't think we have that expression in English, do we? You'd have to say little Peter or Petey. I don't know. Doesn't really sort of translate. But this is when he really came into his own, because this is when he reformed his life. He announced that he was retired from being a vigilante, which is what he'd been when he was young. And he officially declared going to commit any more crimes, and he became a YouTuber, commenting on modern crimes, a bit like me, I suppose, but campaigning against gang violence and teaching the public not to be proud of criminal acts. So that's good. I'm just gonna have a look at his pictures. I've left, so you can see all these tattoos that he has. These are associated with drugs. I'm saying but you think he's spent his whole life virtually in prison, really? His young life. This, I don't know. I mean, he didn't have a great start in life, but he won't be the only one. I mean, there's a lot of gangs, in South America, unfortunately, the drug gangs. And a sign of these, of course, are the tattoos. He's just covered in tattoos, bless him. Anyway, so he did some good. He started his life out badly, if you like. But he ended up doing good. Sorry, I've just come back to the chat. So what's Chumba up to? Hi, Charlie. Yes, he won't be. He does look like a maniac. But he became a better person, I suppose, in the end. I suppose that's all you can do in your life. Hi, Tina. All you can do in your life is try and improve, and hi, 411. Oh, she's put you on the naughty step, Joanne. Yeah. She's a little bit of a trouble causer, Chumba. Where is she now? Hi, Taro with Geo. Oh, yeah. Hi, Rio. I know sometimes you forget what account you're on. Hi, Claire. Oh, Tina, that's what I was watching. What was the final result, Tina? Because I had to stop watching it. And Manchester City, I'm sorry if you're an Arsenal fan, but I'm a Manchester City fan. Manchester City were winning 1-0. What was the final result? Because I don't know. Hi, Mia. Yes, 13. I mean, starts in childhood, though. Wow. I mean, I think that's, you know, he did have he did, sometimes people don't have much of a chance in life, do they? But it all depends which way they go. But, you know, in that country, in Brazil, in Colombia, in those places. Hi, Vicky. It must be very scary to have sons, I think, or daughters, because look what happened to his girlfriend. But all that, if you're born into that sort of area where it's all about drugs and gangs, it's the gangs, isn't it? In London, it's the same. There's a lot of gangs in London. So, what? Arsenal won 4-1 on penalties. Are you winding me up, Charlie? Please tell me you're winding me up, because when I last was watching it, City were 1-0 up. But there was loads of extra time. And I'll tell you something that I've noticed, and whenever Arsenal are playing, they always get loads of extra time. I noticed it last year because of the run-up to the Championship. Every time, yeah, Arsenal, they had 9 minutes extra time. City were winning 1-0 and they had 9 minutes extra time. They always get extra time. Oh, right. I wish I'd not read. Oh, no. Well, it's only the Charity Shield. We won the Championship last year. In fact, we won 3 things last year. Anyway, let's not get onto football. So I just want to tell you a little bit more about Pedro. So everything was going better for him. And as far as I know, as I say, he didn't have any other serious relationship. Maybe he did, maybe see if I can find out, did he get married to anyone else? No, there's no mention of any other partner, bless him. So that girl, his girlfriend who was murdered, a child, he never I mean, obviously he was in prison for a long time, but he never seemed to really get over it. And then it all came to an end for Pedro, or Pedrito, Pedrinho, about 10 a.m. on the 5th of March 2023. So just this year, just a couple of months ago, he was shot and killed by 2 men in a drive-by shooting. Now, bearing in mind that now, you know, for the past 8 years before that, since he was released from prison the second time, he's been like a model citizen. You know, he started his YouTube channel. He was trying to dissuade people from gang violence, etc. And, you know, the thing is, sometimes I know 71 people, but that he would be a very good advocate for keeping young people away from gangs and things, you know, because he's been there, he's done that, and young people listen to that more than they'll listen to some sort of politician telling them they shouldn't do this and they shouldn't do that. But somebody who's actually been there, lived the life and suffered from it one way or another, young people listen to that more, don't they? So I'm sure he had an effect on some people's lives, and I'm glad he did. But he was shot and killed. You know, they say you live by the sword, you die by the sword. No doubt these 2 men that shot him from the car, maybe they were relatives of somebody he'd killed at some point. You know, see, it just goes out like ripples. He sort of murdered a whole gang because his girlfriend was murdered. But then that whole gang will have had their families, their wives, their mothers, fathers, cousins, brothers. And I'm sure he was probably that was probably the reason he was murdered, was some sort of revenge from a murder that he'd done himself. So it is a bit of karma. And it's a shame in a way, but it has had an effect now. So then, from 2003, when he was originally planned to be released from prison, that's when he became the inspiration for Dexter, which of course was a book series to start off with by Jeff Lindsay. So I'm not talking about the actual TV program itself. He was the inspiration for the books, which then became the television series. And of course, if you don't know, if you've never watched Dexter, gosh, I have such mixed. I love Dexter. I love the series. I've watched it quite a few times. I didn't like the ending of it. I thought it were, quite often with these sort of series, they don't know where to go with the endings, do they? Let's just have a look at. Let's have a look at Dexter. Do you remember it? Did you watch it? I mean, it's still on, probably on. It's probably still on some streaming networks, etc. Yeah, there's something about Dexter that we shouldn't like it really, because at the end of the day, it's about a serial killer. But we sort of we do like it, and I thought it was interesting. I thought most of the series were great, but I didn't like the ending. I won't spoil the ending for anyone who hasn't seen it, because I just didn't like. I didn't like the final series. I didn't like where it went, and I think they just didn't know what to do with it in the end. They probably would have been better killing Dexter off, I think. Oh gosh, there you go. But it was a good series. There was a lot of questions raised with the series, wasn't it? It's like, is it right to kill a killer? And I think most of the killers that Dexter killed, they were really horrible killers, serial killers, or they killed children, or so the moral was that it was sort of all right for him to do that because they were bad. But was it really? So it depends how far you look into these sort of series. But the other thing that is interesting about Dexter, is quite a lot of serial killers, or quite a lot of killers, not necessarily serial killers because they're not as clever as Dexter was. Quite a lot of killers say that their hero was Dexter, and they get ideas. They got ideas from Dexter, like about wrapping, putting plastic over the, DNA ideas and that. So that sort of rankles a little bit, doesn't it? But you can't stop. You can't. There'll always be some weirdos out there who'll, you should be able to watch a kind of series and not think that, oh God, that's going to make somebody go out and do something. I don't believe it makes them go out and do something. It might give them some ideas, but you've got to already have that in your head. I mean, most people who watch that series are not thinking that they want to be a serial killer. There's this morbid fascination that we have with serial killers that we don't, I've said it before, it's almost like, it's like a morbid fascination. You just can't help it. It intrigues us because we want to know what makes them tick. We want to know why they do those things. Can it be helped? Are there be our neighbor, it could be anyone, so I think we're sort of intrigued. But most people, they wouldn't watch Dexter and then think, oh yeah, that's a good idea, I'm going to do that. But a lot of killers have said that they got inspiration from Dexter. Desi, I've watched it many times, probably 3 or 4 times I've watched it. I didn't like Breaking Bad. I've tried to get into many times. I don't like it. I don't like the guy, the main character, I'm afraid. Don't like him at all, actually. Yeah, a little bit violent. Well, a lot violent. But when the violent things come up, I just sort of close my eyes. bit like I am a binge watcher. If I like it, like The Walking Dead, I love that series, so I've watched that over and over. In fact, thinking about it, I've not watched it for a while, so I might watch it again. You know, I do tend to, things that I really like, I do watch over and over again. I've always been the same. I read books over and over again. But okay, so he was the inspiration for that. So this guy that we don't even know, I'd never heard of him. I was just researching about who I was going to, you know, and I was thinking, oh, shall I do the Wests? Or shall I, you know, serial killers that we know a lot about, or some of the ones from America. And then it just came across this, and I just thought, oh, this is a little bit different. And with the connection with Dexter, I thought, no, I'm going to do this because probably people don't know about this guy. And he's led an interesting life. Yeah, I love The Walking Dead. Claire, I liked American Horror, the first couple of series I did like, but then I think I stopped liking American Horror. I think it was the one where they were in the hospital. I found it too creepy. It was just too much for me. So I stopped watching it then. That, Desi, that Jeffrey Dahmer, oh, that series on Netflix was I mean, it was terrifying, but it was very good. The actor was very good because he was so like the real Jeffrey Dahmer. So I've seen him being interviewed, and my God, it could have been him. Oh, that's your favourite, Claire, that one in the hospital. Oh. But it was like, I was very scared. But see, I don't really like gory things. I know I like The Walking Dead, and you say, oh, that's gory. But I like the characters in it. I don't know why I didn't like that nurse one, that hospital one. But I like the first one a lot. I prefer ghost things. I prefer things that are suggested rather than, you know, suspense and things. I'll tell you a film I think is good, and I've never managed to find it anywhere to watch it again, is The Others with Nicole Kidman. That's an excellent film. Have any of you seen that? The Others with Nicole Kidman. Very good film. Okay, now I want to show something else about Pedro. The problem is all the videos are in, well, I thought it was Spanish, but it's actually, sometimes they're in Spanish because the Spanish have made, there's not many videos, you know, that you see from English. He's foreign, I suppose. But there's quite a few Spanish. Let's have a look at this one. I was looking for something. Right, I'm going to put this on for you to have a look. It's a Spanish. It's a Spanish news thing, but.
O Pedrinho Matador, como era conocido, quien se encontraba fuera de la casa de su hermana cuando un auto de color negro, con varios encapuchados en su interior, lo acribillaron.
This is when he was killed. I'm surprised they're not showing you the full body without the sheet on, because that's something that I've come to realise in Spanish news. They don't hold anything back. You know, quite often you watch and you think, oh my God, did I really want to, you know, you actually see the body or whatever. They don't. Anyway, there is a sheet over
Una quemarropa.
Possível. O assassinato dele agora é cercado de perguntas.
La muerte del hombre de 69 años ocurrió en Mogi das Cruzes de Sao Paulo, lugar donde a los 10 años inició su carrera criminal con pequeños robos, pero no pasó mucho tiempo para su primer homicidio a los 14 años, cuando se enteró que despidieron a su padre del trabajo, por lo que asesinó a su jefe.
Si dices estar en contra de la pena de muerte, ¿por qué mataste a tanta gente?
Porque ellos no valían ni una mierda, ¿entendiste? Yo no maté a ninguna persona buena. Una vez un periodista...
So what he's saying there, the guy said to him, why did you kill so many people? And he said, I haven't killed any good person. I never killed any good person.
Me dijo, Pedrinho, tú dijiste que no matas a padres de familia ni a gente buena. Si ellos fueran padres de familia, se debe pensar 1000 veces antes de realizar crímenes.
He's saying he always made sure they were bad people before he killed them. So.
Narcotraficantes, violadores y otros asesinos. Esas eran las víctimas de Matador, pero no gente buena, como confesó.
So yeah, he said he only killed drug dealers, rapists, traffickers, etc. That's what he said.
Al medio Récord TV. Mato por placer. Esa es la frase con la que se recuerda a Rodrigues Filho, frase que se tatuó en uno de sus brazos y que según él, esta sed por la muerte la desarrolló a temprana edad. Tras esto cometió más de 100 homicidios, entre los cuales se cuenta el asesinato de su padre, que mató luego de que un guardia de la prisión le dijera que había asesinado a su madre.
Él me dice,
Oh, and one thing I did forget to tell you as well, which is quite a big thing that I shouldn't have forgotten. He actually did kill his own father in the end. So his father, that he killed the other guy. Let me just check because I think he killed his father and he ate part of his heart. Why is it? It's not saying it on there, but just let me check. Right. Yes, he killed his own father. You can check, this actually is a British newspaper. He killed his own father and ate his heart while they were both serving time in prison. Now, apparently, he says his father killed his mother. So, I don't know. Where does it go into the details there? So, the murder happened while they were both being held in the same prison. And he said, I killed my father in prison. I was already in prison then. I've spent 42 years in prison. My father was in prison. I arranged a well thought out plan and I turned up at my father's cell. I had promised revenge on my mother's coffin. And he said after stabbing his father 22 times, he ripped out his heart and bit into it. He said, I just chewed it. Oh dear. Fair warning. I cut the tip of his heart off and chewed it and threw it on top of his body. Yeah. So, gosh. So, I mean, it just gets worse, doesn't it? I think, yes, he ate a little bit of his father's heart. So, sorry about that. I know. I think they should. There's definitely a film in this man's life, isn't it? I mean, I know that Dexter might have been based on him, but really, you know, he deserves a series of his own. I mean, I know. And he did that while he was in prison. So he seemed to kill just as much when he... So if he kills 71 people, he was only about 18, 19 when he went to prison. So he'd done all that before he went to prison. While he's in prison, he's killed the guy in the van going from one place to another because he was a rapist. And then he's in prison with his own father and he's killed him as well. So, yeah. Ooh. Ah. Oh, Tina, you're Man City as well. I'm glad. I'm glad you're feeling better, Claire. Yes, now something that I think you're talking about in chat, and I know that I don't normally mention other channels in chat, but anyway, no, I'm not going to mention it. So there you go. So there's Pedrinho or Pedro. Gosh, I mean, he had a violent life. I just want to show this one more. You won't be able to understand what they're saying because I think they're speaking in Portuguese. But it's interesting. This is in this video. He's talking about the death of his father or the murder of his father.
Engoliu.
Ah, isso não dá nada.
Mas mastigou.
Mastiguei porque, né? Porque foi vingança, tem que fazer aquilo, era mãe, né?
Dois fatos sustentam essa versão. Registros oficiais comprovam que tudo isso sugere
Let's go back.
de São Paulo.
E aí?
I don't want to see
Fica
it.
do coração, né? Que eu tinha jurado vingança. Mas não que eu comi. Vou ver na internet, tá falando que eu comi coração.
O que
Eu
você fez?
simplesmente cortei. Que era vingança, né? Cortei. Joguei fora.
Você tirou o coração do teu pai e
Um
jogou?
pedaço. Um pedaço.
Um pedaço e jogou fora.
Mastiguei e cuspi fora.
Ah, mas não engoliu.
Ah, cuspi danado.
Mas mastigou.
Mastiguei porque, né? Porque foi vingança, tem que fazer aquilo. Era mãe.
I was trying to look for his YouTube channel, but I couldn't find it. So, you know, because I wondered, I mean, not that, again, we wouldn't have been able to understand it because he'd be speaking in Portuguese. Oh, so my dogs have just started fighting now. Hey, hey, hey! Because it's finally cooled down a little bit. It cools down about this time and they have a little bit of a mad half hour. Rocky! It's just pointless. I feel a little bit sorry for Pedro. I mean, I know it's horrible. The things he's done. Hey! Hey! Come here. Come here. Stop it. Stop. God, those little shits, honestly. Little shit, aren't you? Come here and say hello. Come on, you like to put your face on camera, don't you? Come here. Let's see if we can see you. Yes. Yeah, I feel a little bit sorry for him because the life he was born into, and then his girlfriend being murdered, but then he'd already murdered people before that. He just got worse after that. So, you know, I don't know. But anyway, I hope he did some good at the end of his life when he came out and he set up this YouTube channel where he's advising people young people not to get involved in gangs, etc. He may even have just saved one boy, you know, one boy's life, one girl's life. So even if he just helped one person, but actually he had millions of views and he had about 250,000 subscribers when he died. So his YouTube channel was very popular. So hopefully through all that very violent and sad life that he had, most of it in prison, hopefully at the end of it he managed to do some good. So I know it does. Well, his father was very abusive, Princess. You know, just he I know it doesn't excuse evil, but in the end, at least he made some positive contribution. But it's an interesting story that I didn't know about. I didn't know that he was the inspiration for Dexter. So that is, you know, I'm glad that I talked about him because I know he's not a well-known killer and he probably won't attract as much attention for me doing a video about him because people won't know who he is. But I like to, things like that, I like to sometimes know about things that are a bit obscure. And I think the connection with Dexter, that's what made me decide to do the video on it. Yeah. Yeah, Claire, I feel sorry for that man. But the trouble is he's asked for a budgie. I don't think I'd like to put a budgie in there with him. I'd feel a bit sorry for the budgie. Do you know what I mean? No, I don't remember his name, but I did read about it. And he's asked for a budgie. But I don't know about that because he lives in a cell a bit like Hannibal Lecter, doesn't he? He's underground. He's supposed to be the most dangerous prisoner, but I wouldn't want to put a living animal in there with him because, you know, I just don't think it would be fair to the animal because the animal hasn't done anything wrong. But maybe he should get some, I don't know, they could give him some books or something. I don't know what he has got down there or not got. Well, he might eat the bird, he might kill it. So, you know, that's it. I just wouldn't feel comfortable. And, you know, the bird hasn't done anything wrong at the end of the day. Okay, so there he is. That is Pedrito or Pedro. What do we think? Did Do we feel any sympathy for people like that? I mean, he did turn his life around, at least in the end, and he did, make a positive contribution to society. And what about this law in Brazil that you can only serve a maximum? Now it's 40 years, but when he was in prison, even though he'd killed 71 people and he was given a sentence, what's the point in giving someone a sentence of 126 years if the maximum they're allowed to serve is only 30? I just don't get that. But now apparently it's gone up to 40. So as I say, yeah, if you're thinking of being a serial killer, go and do it in Brazil, because the maximum you can serve in prison is 40 years. So, okay, so I'm going shortly to have something to eat. Now, yeah, what are you all doing now? I'm going to go actually and drown my sorrows about Manchester City losing to Arsenal, of all people. Yeah. So I could, oh God, I just knew it. When I turned the television off to start the live, I thought, God, there's still 8 minutes or whatever of extra time to go there. And I thought, I bet Arsenal equalise and that. But I tell you, you mark my words, every match, I noticed it last year, every single match, because I was following all the Arsenal matches because of the fact that they were so close with Manchester City and to win the championship. And every time they got loads of extra time, every single match. I'll survive, Charlie, I'll survive. There's a lot worse things, isn't there? There's something I was going to say then, but it's gone. What I was going to say was, oh yes, but don't forget, if you're English, I know Chumba and David might not be interested, or anyone from Scotland, but remember to support the Lionesses tomorrow morning at 9:30 Spanish time, 8:30 English time. The Lionesses are playing Nigeria, and I think the Lionesses, they're going to win the World Cup this year. I think it's going to end up being England versus Spain, because that's what I think anyway in the final. And obviously I'll be supporting England. If England get knocked out, I will be supporting Spain then if they get through. So what do you think about and also let me know what you think about the tarot card readings. Because when we were talking about the other night, and I thought, oh gosh, here's I rooted out my my tarot cards that I haven't done properly for a long time, apart from what I said in the other video that I did this charity thing about 10 years ago, where I sort of dressed up as a fortune reader, and I did some quick tarot card readings just for €5, €5 each, and all the proceeds went to Help for Heroes. I think it was Help for Heroes. It's that long ago, I don't remember. And it was good. It went well, but I haven't done them since then. But yeah, I'm going to count them later and make sure they're all there. I am a Leo, Claire. I'm a Leo. Leo are the best. Well, I'm a Leo with now. I don't know how seriously you believe in horoscopes, but obviously it's not only what star sign you are. You have an ascendant. I'm a Leo with a Cancer ascendant, so I'm not a full-blown Leo. I've got a Cancer ascendant, which sort of waters me down a little bit. Oh, Chumba, you're a Leo. A lion, yeah. Oh, your daughter and their dad, are you still friends with their dad then? Because you're not together. I mean, I don't mean to be rude or personal, but I like Leo men quite a lot, actually. Scorpio. My ex-husband was a Scorpio. 24th of July. Oh, he lives on a boat. Huh. Why not? Whatever floats your boat. You're a Cancerian. Yeah. Cancerians love the home. They're home lovers. Oh, he lives on a boat in Spain. Oh, my goodness. Well, I suppose if you've got to live on a boat, it's better in Spain than, you know, because those barges are lovely, aren't they, on the river, like along the Thames. But I just think, God, that'd be freezing in the winter. Capricorn, so that's January time, is it? End of December. 12th of August. That's Leo, isn't it? Chumba, your boyfriend is Cancer, is he? Oh my God, are you two-timing David then, obviously? Is he a home lover? I've been out with a Cancerian man. They're not a good match with Leo. Oh, Joe H. Shelley's a Virgo. My son's a Virgo. Now, which kind of a Virgo are you? Because there's different kinds of Virgo. Tina's a Leo. Virgos like things, they're quite perfectionists, aren't they? But my son, unfortunately, he is a perfectionist in some things, but not in cleanliness, like, you know, tidiness around the house and everything. Because some Virgos are really sort of, because they like things all ordered in a certain way. They're quite OCD about tidiness and stuff around the house. And unfortunately, my son is not one of those Virgos. He's got OCD about other things, but not about tidiness. Yeah, my brother, one of my brothers is a Virgo as well. Virgos, I think female Virgos are nicer than male Virgos. And I say that I don't want to offend any male Virgo that might be watching. But I don't know what it is about it. I shouldn't say it really, because I'm talking about my son when I say this, but sometimes we're very compatible and we get on really well. But I think what it is about the Virgo in my son is he can't. I'm like very laid back, and Virgos they worry about things, don't they? And they like things to be a certain way, and sometimes we clash about that. I'm August, Chumba. I have a birthday coming up. Well, Leos can be bossy. They can be. I'm not very bossy, believe it or not, but that's because I've got a Cancer ascendant, so it waters it down for me. But a full-blown Leo can be bossy. 22nd of November. So what? The 8th of what, Claire? The 8th of August. Anyway. Yes, we need to do it right. So that's, apart from the tarots, which I'm going to practice on the members first. So they're my guinea pigs. We're going to have to, but I'll do a video about horoscopes. I think people are interested in horoscopes. And the thing about horoscopes is, you know, obviously you read them in the paper or whatever, they can't tell, you know, people all over the world what's going to happen. But if you get a proper horoscope done, and there are tendencies, there are traits for different horoscopes. I believe in that anyway. So you have to look into it quite deeply, I think. Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting, Shelley, because I do think Virgos are very sensitive. That's male or female. I do think that they are animal lovers in general. Because they're sensitive and kind. That's the very positive side of a Virgo, I think. Your grandson, Claire, my God. Well, I've decided I don't want any grandchildren after that flight from hell where that little girl was crying all the way along. All the way through the flight. I thought, oh, I don't know if I want any grandchildren. I've got my German Shepherd, or my son's German Shepherd. He always refers to me as Gma. She's like my little granddaughter. Oh, you don't see him. But Chumba's always talking about maths. I've noticed that quite often, Chumba. You know, it's a little bit worrying that. Look, I'm just sat here chatting now. It's ridiculous, but sorry. Yeah, Claire, Virgos are very sensitive. So, you know, obviously I don't know what's happened, and I don't, it's none of my business, but I know from my son, they're very sensitive. You've got to be very careful with their feelings, I think. Whereas Shelley, do you have a German Shepherd? I love German Shepherds. I really do love them. I think with Virgos, what's the word? It's like with Virgo men anyway, and I'm only using my son as an example. Because I'm a person, I don't hold any grudges I get angry quite often. I'm a person who's quick to anger, but then quick to not be angry anymore. Quick to forgive. And sometimes I have to remember that with my son, because he's very sensitive. So if I get angry, I have to think about it, because I can upset him, and I don't mean to. It's just me, and sometimes I've got no filter, and I just come out with something, and I have to be aware that he's more sensitive than that. Like people could say things to me, and don't get me wrong, it would hurt, but I would forget and forgive it very quickly. But I think Virgos are a little bit more sensitive than that. Yeah, Shelley, my fate. Well, I like most dogs, but before my son got a German, so I'm rambling on again now, but never mind. Here we go. We've started this conversation. When my son first said he wanted a German Shepherd, I nearly died. So I've only ever had little dogs. I've never really wanted big dogs, because I've always been a little bit scared of them. So now my son is 6'5", so he said, "Oh, can't I have like a big dog?" Because he was living here at the time, 7 years ago. Can't I, I'd like to take a big dog out for once instead of, so he's not always out there like massive with these tiny little dogs. And in the end, I relented, and he got the German Shepherd. I just fell in love with her straight away. I just totally fell in love with her, and I couldn't believe that I'd never had one before. But having said that, I think for me now, she'd be a lot to handle. You need a lot of strength with a big dog like that, I think. She is strong. And that's why, when I saw that thing about the police dog handlers and murdering that dog Jax, I just think that dog wasn't handled properly. They do take a lot of handling. They're strong, but they're intelligent, and they're normally fiercely loyal. They might be aggressive towards somebody else, but I don't believe they would get aggressive towards their own handler, unless there was something wrong. Right, it's turning into a dating site again. I know, poor Jax. Okay, so I'm definitely going. So remember to always live and love very carefully. I'm not going to say what I was just going to say there. It was about Chumba and Mass, but I'm not going to say it. And I'll see you very soon in the next video. And until then, may your God always go with you. Thank you. Bye.